Cavs are awfully thin
Mm-hmm.
right now. Okay, now here's the second part of this deal. To allow this to happen, remember that James Harden opted out of a contract that would have paid him $43 million this year. Now, that contract was not fully guaranteed. It was only guaranteed $12 million. But the truth is the Cavs weren't going to cut him.
Right.
He's their franchise point guard. So if he had opted into that contract, they would have paid him the $43 million. He was getting the money. Okay. So James Harden was willing to opt out of that contract and sit around all summer and basically pick up the phone whenever the Cavs called, calling his agents more than anything, but and say, yeah, I'll go down a little farther. I'll go down a little farther. And so as the Cavs made various moves, Harden not only was willing to reduce his salary, but he was willing to recruit. He, from what I understand, and I assume Donovan Mitchell was too. I haven't heard this, but he recruited Peyton Watson. He was on I guess at the Fanatics Fest where you hung out, Dave. You had a fun couple of days there.
Yeah.
At the Javits Center. They were both there. And at that time, the Cavs were recruiting Watson and Harden was with him and recruited him. And Watson is from LA and Harden is from LA, and they had some connection there, even though they're, I think 13 years apart. And so the bill came due, McMahon. The bill came due. And so James Harden gets a 3-year, $97 million contract. All guaranteed. And the third year is a player option.
I bet you he'll pick that option up.
Well, or he'll opt out of it and do this again in a couple years.
He'll be pretty old to be opting out of it at that point. But
he's turning 37 next week. Happy birthday!
Yeah, so
early
this is
to
for
James.
37, 38, 39.
This contract will take. Well, I'll stop on that. McMahon, 3 years, $97 million for fully guaranteed for James Harden. God bless America.
Listen, man, the Cavs are all in on right now, and they're trying to which is a tough spot to be. You're all in on right now with real questions about your bench and not a whole lot of ways you can go about upgrade. Aren't they hard cap now as well?
Yes, they are.
So to upgrade the bench even during the season is going to be extremely difficult. To be able to pull that off. And, Watson is kind of a combination of being all in now and trying to give yourself some long-term upside. And I do think he has long-term upsides. You mentioned the 18-game stretch. It's really a half-season stretch as a starter for him. 38 games since, Christian Brown got hurt and he started every game he played after that. It was 17.5 points, shooting it better than 50%, 44 from three. Decent rebounder, good defender. And I remember in the middle of that stretch, when he was really rolling, they came to Dallas and I was talking to Aaron Gordon about him. And the thing that really surprised people is because you always said about Watson, hey, if he can just become a decent 3-point shooter, he's going to be a really nice player. And he had proven that. And then you saw him doing all this stuff off the dribble. It's whoa, I didn't know he could do that.
Well, listen, with the Cavs' depth at ball handler, we'll hear from Kenny Atkinson and Kobe Altman in the coming days. The Cavs may need him to do some of that.
I mean, he'll be their secondary ball handler in the lineup when one of their guards is sitting, I would think, a lot of times. But I remember I was talking to Aaron Gordon. He said, dude, we see this stuff when we play pickup and things like that. We've seen him for a while. He said, he reminds me of a young Paul George. Now, I think that might be hyperbole there. Young Paul George is awfully good, but his point was he looked at Watson as a really dynamic, athletic, versatile 6'8" wing. And, if that's what the Cavs are getting, then honestly, the deals, it's not crazy money. $22 million is not, in today's NBA, is not a crazy number. It's
here's the thing.
For starter money.
Look, you talk to different people who give you different opinions. He's 23 years old, so they're signing him for ages 23 to 26. Basically, he's 23, 24, 25 years, whatever. I feel okay about signing a player to that kind of a deal when they're in their mid-20s.
Yeah.
I'm not, you can find people that don't like paying him $22 a year. If that's when you're going to gamble,
including the Nuggets, apparently.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Nuggets in a minute. You guys know how I feel. when a contract gets signed, I ask the question, can this contract be traded? I've talked to executives today who have said, I don't like that contract. But I've also talked to executives who've said, he's 23 years old. That's probably going to age pretty well. If he was 33 years old, I wouldn't like it. But 23 years old, I like it. So I don't think they could trade it for huge value this afternoon. I'm not of the concerns I have about this Cavs maneuver.
Right.
I'm concerned that they have no depth because they've hollowed out their depth to do this. I'm concerned that they now have no tradable first. So when they need to add to their depth, that they're hard capped and they have nothing to add to the team. Of the things I'm concerned about with Cleveland, whether Watson is going to be this type of player, whether they can fill out their roster properly, the level of contract is not at the top right now. Sorry.
I do think we should discuss Harden just a little bit more here. Shams had reporting in his story that he is now going to become the fourth player in league history to make over $500 million in salary. And obviously the other three are the Olympic teammates in 24 and LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry. And it's just kind of a fascinating look at James Harden's career to step back. Obviously the MVP, the trip to the finals with the Thunder. But to be able to have that, this career earnings is part of what he's able to accomplish in the league, like probably somewhat underrated in terms of what he's done in the league.
Right. Well, but when you stack him up against those other three guys, like there's one pretty obvious glaring omission from his resume. And his finals trip was as a sixth man. He's not got a team to the finals as a lead guy or even as a starter, and obviously no championship. So, I mean, he's a no-brainer Hall of Famer. But when you discuss, and legacy to me is an overused word, but when you discuss Harden's legacy, unfortunately, you get to the playoff failures pretty quickly.
Well, let me just say this. So, we talked about agenting, and earlier this summer, just so the recap, like I was very willing to praise Aaron Mintz and CAA for how they handled. I mean, Aaron Mintz and CAA getting Trae Young taken care of, starting with the trade out of Atlanta, and getting Walker Kessler taken care of.
Good run.
Great stuff. Rich Paul, I just said Peyton Watson. Now I'm going to shout out Mike Silverman and Detroit Payne, who are Harden's agents. Last year, like I don't remember the exact date. Don't hold me to this date, but there was some point in December or January where the Clippers decided they were pulling the plug. They got off to that bad start and then they got hot, but they didn't believe in the team. Obviously, they traded Ivica Zubac. They obviously traded Harden, and then eventually they traded Kawhi, if that ever actually goes through. but Harden had this like team option, or like it was a player option, but it was only a few 12 million or 13 million guaranteed. So he's sitting there. He knows he's about to be traded, and his future contracts weren't assured. And that trade to Cleveland was manufactured by the agents. The agents went out and found the deal. Now the Cavs liked him and were watching the situation too. Mm-hmm. So they go out, just like the deal to Washington was partially executed by CAA. Okay. And so just like, you talk about power and the influence of power in the NBA, like, yeah, the two teams have to do it. There's all kinds of relationships that matter in trades. For example, the Cavs do this deal where Trey Mann passes through their hands to Washington. The part of the reason that Trey Mann is now in Washington is because Will Dawkins, the GM, drafted him when he was in Oklahoma City. So there's all these things that happen, right? But they get Harden into a spot where they're willing to pay him. And if you had told me when the Clippers were pulling the plug on last season and about to trade Harden away, that Harden was going to end up in a 3-year, $100 million deal, all guaranteed, the following summer, I would have told you were nuts.
Harden's a pretty good businessman himself.
Agree. Well, yeah. Well, he had to play well. He played well in Cleveland. He created a relationship with head coach Kenny Atkinson, and he created a relationship with the organization. And like, how did he feel about moving from his hometown of LA to Cleveland? I don't know how he really felt, but you never saw it show up in his attitude or his performance on the court.
Mecton, you were a big basketball fan growing up. Who was your favorite agent as a kid?
Well, that's why we talk about what are we doing on a podcast? Like, that's the point.
David Falk, baby. Syracuse
There
alum.
you go.
Let's go.
Was he from
With
Syracuse?
the facts.
Syracuse and MJ. Come on, let's go.
Oh, Lordy. I walked right into a Syracuse reference.
That's right.